Yeah, I want to address some more things on silver as we see the price plummet a little bit more. Yeah, I know, Dave. I'm going to address this specifically about what David Morgan said about cash costs. Actually, I shouldn't have been so hard on him because he's addressing people who are throwing out terminology or skewing numbers about what actually the cost of silver really is to mine. And you know, there's also things going on where you're mining the silver, but that doesn't mean that's the end product finished coins or little bars that are, you know, that are stamped and everything and weighed, and it's a finished product through the refinery and it's all done stamped into a coin. It doesn't cost that much, I know, to stamp a coin, but still that all adds to the cost because you got to transport it from the mine, and there's other things involved. Now, yesterday I was having dinner with a few people, and one of them happened to be, well, one of them I know well. He's has his own. He's the head of a CPA firm, all right. And I don't like saying this because it reveals too much. But you know, I had to say to him, "Have you ever heard the term cash cost?" And he looked at me like, "What?" I said, "The term cash cost." And he said, "What? Say that again?" I said, "The term cash cost used in accounting." He's like, "He's doing this." I said, "Never mind." I had to keep a straight face because of the way he looked at me. And, you know, I never really heard of it. I know, like, there's things thrown out there, like, by other people. But I guess they might use that term in the UK. They might be. Now, I know, like, my uncle used to tell me it was a joke, really, that they put the debits on the right in the UK accounting, like they drive backwards and they do accounting backwards. And maybe that was true at one time, but I know it's not true anymore because I work with investors from the UK on projects, and you know, the accounting's all done the same way as it is here in the United States. But I just want to point out, you know, some things. I want to give you some examples. First off, you know, you might say even the cash cost of mine, but you know, I'll just put this example out here. It's a crude, lewd example, but you know, you got a lady walking down the street. You know, you might say, what is the operational cash cost for her to be walking down the street? You might say zero. Are you going to be able to give her $1? No. It's whatever the market will bear, right? So that's just how it works. But Harry, we're going to give you a little more examples because I'm going to actually get into a little more details on the accounting side of things and not try to confuse people. I know people are posting about cash basis of accounting. It has nothing to do with it, really. There's a few industries that supposedly out there that use that. I never really see them though in practice. I remember that was like from school stuff. Like, I mean, I could probably Google it and say what industries typically use cash basis of accounting, but there ain't many. Pretty much everybody, and I've seen a number of industries. It's all it's accrual method. But let's just talk about like the nuts and bolts type operational expenses. Now, say for instance you're running a factory, right? You're going to be, say, running a factory and you're saying, well, it costs this much for raw material, it costs this much for the labor to run the actual machinery, and, you know, you're figuring electricity, and that's about it, you know, and you're saying that's actually our operating expense. And you could say, well, let's call that cash cost, a term that accountants don't use. Maybe they use that in the UK, but in the UK, they'll call the hood of a car a bonnet. And you know, if you're not familiar with what the hell you're talking about, the bonnet or some other thing, or an adjustable spanner or something, you know what I mean, with cars or mechanics, and like sometimes you don't know what they're talking about. Maybe they are using that term in the UK. But then again, I worked with, and maybe they're Americanized, because I worked with people from the UK and they weren't using that term. And it didn't appear on the financials. And I also worked with somebody from South Africa on mining stuff, various mining projects, and he didn't use that term either. So I don't know. It could be something thrown out there on pro formas, something to freaking make people bite on investments. I know this, that when people are looking for money or investors, or you know, money from either investors or from banks, they will make it sound like they're going to be like 90% of profitable. You know, I don't care if they're opening up some little retail store someplace. Oh, we're going to have this many customers this month, this many customers that month. This is why you have to lend us money, and this is what our actual cost will be, and we figured everything out, and we're going to make gobs and gobs and gobs of money. Yeah, actually, it's a hell of a lot more than that. And I think since the price of silver's been suppressed so long, that these guys are probably buried under debt from long-term debt they had to take on when they were doing major capital expenditures when the markets were hot and it looked hot. They're still stuck with this long-term debt. It probably is 5 years or 7 years or whatever the hell it is. But anyway, let me just go on with some of the things. Like, say, for instance, if you have a factory out there and you're saying the operational cost, you're talking about the actual energy requirements to produce the widgets, whatever the hell it is, going out the factory. You're talking about the actual labor that's actually operating the machineries, and you're talking about the raw materials that are actually needed to make whatever the end product is, right? Now, for instance, it's almost like you're saying, oh, that's the operational cost, but what about, what did the property grow there? The property, plant, and equipment all grow there? Did the equipment, the factories, the machinery itself just come out of nowhere? No. What about the lease on equipment, like even for administration, like all the different types of computers, MIS, people that they have to have on hand? What about, like in a case of mining with security? What about that? Is that not a big issue? You say, oh, that's not part of the cash cost. Oh, really? Well, maybe it's not part of the, I don't even want to throw that term out there because it's a ludicrous term. Like I said, yesterday when I was at dinner with somebody, I put that to him. I had to keep a straight face when I said it to him several times. And he's looking at me like, what the hell are you talking about? And I told him what it was. It was David Morgan said this stuff about, metals or something. And considering that I've came across a number of people that were dealing with the metals in the United States and in South Africa, I never heard the term either. But I do know that they like to present an overly rosy picture to investors that this is what it really cost us to mine. But like I said, I'll give you the example of the lady walking down the street. Maybe it cost her nothing to walk down the street. You might say, well, here's $1, right? Is she going to say, oh, yeah? No, that's not how it works, because there's actually a lot more cost involved in risk and security and everything else too, probably in other ways. So it's not the total cost of really what it costs. Like anybody that wants to, this is what I want to tell you, that if somebody says the cash cost, if they want to use that stupid term, I don't like using that term because it's like saying something that's ludicrous. But maybe that's something they say in the UK. I don't know. I mean, if they say that, I don't even know if the accountants say that in the UK, but maybe it's something that's said amongst laymen or something. I don't even know. I've seen accountants from the UK, and I've seen where with building and also with mining projects, and I've never heard them say that term. So I don't know. And like I just said, I was talking to somebody at dinner yesterday, and they talked about this, and then I threw this at him. He never heard of it in his 40 years experience, and he owns the freaking firm. Okay, and let me put it to you this way, also, like when you're talking about other things that are actually priced into the cost of silver, you're talking about the loans themselves. Maybe the loan has, like I was talking about, they had an interest reserve set up on a loan, and the loan is being added to, and the interest expense is being paid to from the interest reserve, which is set up at the bank, and it's actually adding to the loan. So that's not affecting your cash flow per se. It may be affecting your cash flow initially when you got the money, the moolah from the bank itself, or when you do draws or whatever it is for various stages of production. The other thing is, you might say with real estate taxes, it's not affecting your cash cost immediately, and you can actually, wait a year or something, or you can wait so many extra months, or maybe to do anything on that. Intangible taxes, federal taxes. Also, you might be talking about, since they're running out of loss, maybe they have abandoned projects. I forgot which freaking mine it was, but they had major write-downs with abandoned projects, which I forgot what it was. They were down in Argentina, Peru, on the border there with the mountains. They had major write-downs. So actually, they probably won't have a tax bill for some years, maybe, because they had such major write-downs from abandoned projects. And that helps their cash flow problems, and that was a decision why they decided to abandon a project. But you also want to tell you this. If somebody says, let's give an example. Let's say they say, they throw that stupid word out there. It only costs. I'm not going to say cash. They say they maintain that, by their language, that they're saying it really only cost us $12 to mine silver. Offer them $14 for that silver. and see if they take it. They won't. They won't, because they know better. They know that it doesn't. They're lying. They're lying because they're trying to tell you that their company is extremely healthy, and it's not. That's what they're doing. They always do this to investors, to kind of like make their stock look good, you know, because they want to make. In other words, if you issue any kind of bad reporting or something, bad news that comes out, you can see your stock price go like that. So if you want, say, if you're a public company, you want to issue more stock, you're going to get that much more capital infused in your company. So that's why they always want it. It's a sales pitch is going on from every angle. I know people are bitching about sometimes what the silver people are doing, but there's a sales pitch from every angle out there. Now, I also want to state this. With silver, it's not a feel-good investment right now. And I can also, you know, I put something out about, you know, the future physical price will astound you. And I was talking about it in 2017, 2018. And, you know, people aren't liking that right now. They did like it because they heard, oh, wow, I'm going to make a lot of money. But it's like they want cause and effect right away. And, you know, cause effect right away, a good example is cigarettes and booze. You know, people are like that. You know, they'll take that over vitamins and health food. That's how people are. Even though you'll feel better, far better in the long run by going into health foods and whole foods and taking whole food vitamins, most people won't do it. Cigarettes and booze right away because I want to feel good now. So a lot of times when they're perusing the net, they want to like, how do I make money right now real quick? And they're not going to find that kind of information. And you know what? To tell you the truth, if I knew it was something, well, I wouldn't know something for sure, but I wouldn't put it out here because I don't really like, you know, I think investing should take some work and patience. I don't like people that think they're just going to say, oh, I'm going to click on a button. Because actually anybody that makes a lot of money off of investing consistently, say in the commodities, is cheating because they have inside information. What you have to really look at is the overall trends, but there's going to be waves. I've said this before, there's going to be waves. Now, I'm going to state this also again with silver because I got another way of thinking besides, you know, just looking at technical stuff. If I've noticed, and I put this out, not that I believe this garbage myself per se, but, you know, about the 4 blood moons and astrology and what it means and what the 7 years on a Jewish calendar means. There's been a lot of predictions that September 2015 is going to be one of those dates where we're going to have a financial crash. Now, also, when you're looking at the implementation of the FATCA, which is the Foreign Account Transaction Compliance Act, it's starting to have to be complied with by July 2014. That's bad for the dollar because people aren't going to want to use the dollar. Well, when I look at all this information, you know, that could be. But I do know this. This is my personal suspicion. I don't really believe in a lot of these religious predictions. I don't believe in a lot of these astrological predictions. But I know that a lot of them come true. Especially like, you know, for instance, Pat Robinson publicly was actually stating back in January 2008 about a financial crisis was coming very soon. And nobody really thought of it. And it did. It did. Okay? But what I think goes on is the real powers that be move the markets, make things happen one way or the other, but they also make it coincide sometimes with astrological predictions and religious predictions. In the case of religious predictions, to keep people in line, so they, you know, oh yeah, we gotta pray, and it's not nobody did this. It was all from God, and it was predicted in the Bible. You know what I mean? That's what I think's going on. So if I'm looking at these astrological and religious predictions, they're talking September 2015 as a crash. So I'm figuring, along with the crash, if there's going to be a crash in the markets, there's going to be a crash in the metals. So what I'm figuring is gold, silver, platinum, and palladium are going to skyrocket before that time and then come back down. You know, the peak might be in 2015. And then, but it doesn't take long for silver to crash like crazy and drop half its value. It could be just a week. So maybe it's, you know, $65, $70 and it goes all the way down to like 33, like inside of 2 weeks. That's the way the animal is. Get what I'm saying? So I'm like actually presenting you a non, you know, I'm giving you a little bit of wisdom here on this garbage, because that's what I'm saying, and nobody else is saying that. This stuff, when it goes up, can go up, and typically what happens, it only, like even in 1979, like not that we're going to have a 1979 right away. I think the 1979 type of hyperbolic curve is going to occur in 2017, 2018. But when that happens, you're not thinking, oh wow, it went all the way up to 22 or something, and then it jumped up double from there inside of like no time. And you're like looking like you wouldn't have expected that because it already jumped up. See, that's the hard part, because you don't know how high is high. But I think there's going to be insiders that are going to know. But again, I just want to reiterate that when you're talking about silver and say operating expenses or whatever you need to actually get it out the door from the mine. First off, that isn't the finished product. When you're getting it out the mine, you're getting like a lumpy piece of metal. You're not getting a coin. You're getting a lumpy piece of metal. I know it doesn't cost that much to stamp the coin, but still, they got to take that lumpy piece of metal over and transport it someplace. It's got to have security, and then you got to make the coins, and then they got to market the coins. You got to ship the coins. It adds to the price. Now, when you're talking about bare bones operating expenses, they're not including a lot of stuff. Like I says, right now, I'd imagine even with some of these loans, some of these companies are probably really digging up. You know why they're putting out this too? Because they're probably really looking for more financing or to refinance. Because if I would suspect that a lot of these companies really expanded hard in 2010 and 2011 when the price was really going up, and they got on a hook for a lot of loans. And I don't know how long those loans might be, 3 years, 5 years, or whatever. They're probably looking to refinance, so they're looking to restructure their loan, get a new loan. Like, in other words, pay off the old loan with the new loan, and then just keep going and have a new interest reserve. So they're always presenting a rosy picture. But I'm going to tell you this. No bank or real investor looks at some bullshit report that somebody on the inside of a company might make and say this is what it really costs. I don't care how they put all these pie charts out or whatever. You might see this stuff presented on, Google blogs or something like that. You might see that by individuals, not by Google, but by individuals that are putting out YouTube videos and stuff. But what investors do and banks do, if there's no audited financials, and usually banks that have a large loan will require audited financials, or at least a reviewed financials, they will require a copy of the tax return. So whatever you said, so in other words, when you're a company, you want to say, I want to make my taxes as low as possible and take every deduction I possibly can and show all the expenses I have, even if I got a positive cash flow, but I might have negative income, I want to show that to the IRS legitimately that I actually have a loss even though I have positive cash flow. Well, the investors in the banks will look at that because there's actually, that's actually what's reported. And they want to see a signed tax return that, was actually, done in a CPA's office. So, if somebody's actually putting out a brochure by a mining company and they're saying this and that, I mean, it means just as much as, somebody going on YouTube or somebody going on a blog and making a statement that, this, that, and this is what the price of silver really is. It is a lot higher than that. I saw that thing that somebody posted, $9 cash cost. I'm like, cash, whatever. It's not, it's a ludicrous statement because, like I said, they're not including, like in the case of mine, there might be a big, well, let me put it this way. I know, like, to start a mine, it takes years. So if the demand goes up like this, you're not going to just be able to reopen mines. To close down a mine, it costs a real lot of money. So in a lot of ways, I'm kind of like reaffirming what David Morgan says, and I think he's really, I just got annoyed about him saying accountants say this because accountants don't say that. What he said. It's actually inside people inside the mine that are trying to market something to get investors to bite, and it's also people that are actually trying to make an argument that silver really costs that much less to produce. But when you're actually starting a mine, you'll have you got to find out where the actual good ore is. So you might be testing And then if you're testing, in other words, it might be land owned by the Bureau of Land Management, so you might get a claim there eventually, right? You'll have to pay for the claim. But then when you're dealing with this, you're also dealing, if you're in the United States, that's what I'm only dealing with the United States, but say, for instance, the United States, you're dealing with the environmental department. Then there's like, how much water can I take from irrigation? How am I going to get electricity over there? I'm going to have to build a plant for electricity to actually run the equipment, right? Or run everything because it's this far off the road or something like that. Or if it's off the utility lines and they're not producing their own electricity by bringing in biofuel and generators because maybe it's not that remote, the utility company is going to make them put a major charge on them, money charge, not electrical charge. Big, they're going to invoice the crap out of them for that. Then the county or whatever the hell it is out there is going to say, well, you're going to have all these big trucks moving in and out of here. We're going to have impact study on the roads. You're going to have to pay for the impact study. You're going to have to pay to widen the road. You're going to have to pay for more water maybe to be pumped in there or something like that. That might be coming from the city or it might be coming from other ways, but either way, you're going to have to pay for that. And then you're going to have to, there's all the equipment you need. And then on top of it, so when you're making this big thing where, you're assuming that there's all this ore in here, you better be right, because if you're wrong, all that money you paid is going to go bust. And you're also freaking estimating on a certain price of silver. And I'll guarantee you it's not the lowball numbers they're saying. They're assuming it's going to be going up. And on top of that, you have, like, say, for instance, if you're even figuring the salaries on the employees or something, you're saying, well, that's the salaries for the employees for actually working the mines. But then you have administration salaries. You also have health care plans. You got 401k. You got employer matching. You got various types of pensions and stuff. So that's even like, maybe that's not figured into the actual labor on the mining costs per se. So they're not figuring all the capitalization, like where it's being depreciated. They're not maybe figuring in the, and see, you can twist this around 50 million different ways. You could say, oh, maybe you got to have a bunch of people or several people that are, when you're talking overhead, you might be thinking office overhead, but maybe there's overhead for maintaining the equipment and maintaining the generators that maybe you need some generators out there for supplemental energy. And also, there's environmental costs. Like, in other words, if you're damaging the area, you actually have to pay special people. You have to pay people to go in there and replant the area and fix the soil. Like, you might have to put like all kinds of put all new trees and shrubs there if you're going to damage the soil. That's all included in the whole deal. I'm leaving out a lot because I'm doing this from memory. I mean, there's a lot of different leases and stuff like that on various types of equipment. There's engineering costs, and then you always got things called contingencies and things. And then it's like, if they're just telling you, like, if they're leaving out like all this stuff, because actually when you look at the actual setup of a mine, what goes on with all the spreadsheets, there's like layers and layers and layers and layers of spreadsheets. I am not going to display any kind of stuff like that on YouTube, but if you look at the operational cost, 50% of it is actually diesel fuel. And so that's why I always try to keep my videos simple. I kind of went into a little more detail on this, but and you notice something when I'm talking on this subject. I'm going to tell you this. Here's a big hint where people don't know what they're talking about. They got to make a clip, then they got to stop. They got to read from a script. It's go, oh, there's something here I'm reading from. Oh, I'm reading from this. I'm reading from this. I'm not reading from nothing. I'm not making a clip and they say, oh, what's the next thing I'm going to talk about? I'm doing this right from rote memory. And there's a lot more I remember, and I can get into a lot more detail on things. Now, I'm not totally familiar with this mining industry, but I have been exposed to the mining industry. It is very much like the major major construction industry when you're talking about projects like, many, many millions of dollars, or like maybe $250 million and stuff like that. It is somewhat akin to that type of stuff, because what happens is there's like all kinds of county and state authorities get involved. And you know, it's like a double-edged sword, because when somebody says they're going to make this much money on a mine or a project, that means there's other people coming in here trying to get in on a deal right next to that. And it also tells the county and state authorities that they need to charge money bags, you know, the entity, as much as possible. Because, oh, well, they're going to have loads of money. They could pay us some more in different ways, in taxes and you know, intangible taxes or whatever the hell it is, or special impact fees and things like that. Oh, they could pay us. So it's a double-edged sword when they put out this kind of information. You know, my strategy, actually, you know, if I was going to play this game with the mining, I'd have somebody go out there with a rusty old F-150, you know, holes in the jeans, talking hillbilly, yeah, we're going to try to make some money here. And they can be backed up by, you know, J.P. Morgan themselves up there, and, you know, don't let them be the wiser. That'd be the game I'd be playing, you know. Well, just like the girl on the street, you know, you don't have her walk around like, you know, it's obvious. You have her walk around like she's, you know, going to the beach, or she's in business attire or something, or real conservative. Nobody's the wiser, right? So it's all about that type of deal. But just want to alert you to some of this stuff, because the guys on it, I guess David Morgan wasn't really being a bad guy there. I do know he knows a little more about silver than he ever lets on, but that's just typical, right? That's just typical. But, you know, just beware. Like, you know, like I said, if somebody says that it really costs this much to mine, if a mine's making that kind of claim, if they want to say it's $8 for the price of silver, say, yeah, I want to buy some silver from you. I'll give you $8 plus 20%. Okay, it'll be $9.60 an ounce. I want it delivered, and here's a contract you can sign. I bet you they don't do it because they know better. That's usually how you could tell. That's usually how you could tell. Anyway, hope over and out, and hopefully I enlightened you on some of this stuff. So, you know, I don't know everything about the mining industry, but I know about what people do when they look for investment money. And the game they play on one side, the game they play on the other side, man, it's shrewdness is everything. And, you know, when you're talking about silver, you're like, there's people out saying, it's a sales pitch. There's a sales pitch going on with everything. You know? Everything there is. Everything there is. It's just how it is. If, you know, I don't care if it's the most superfluous stuff there is. There's always a game going on. So I'm trying to set the record straight on this deal, because, you know, I can tell you some stories, but I don't know everything about this. But, you know, I saw that term cash cost, and I was like, huh? What the hell's he talking about? I never heard that. You know, I had to run that by somebody else, and I says, did you ever hear this? You know, you got more experience than me, man. You know, it was like, huh? What the hell are you talking about? But that might be a UK term, too. That might be a UK term. That might be. But I don't know. I was working with UK people. I never heard them say that. I don't know. So, who knows?